Coming up on today's show, one major car boss says other makers must adapt or die. Nissan update the disclaimer on their new Leaf webpage about rapid charging. Oh, and Model 3. So much Model 3. Well, good morning, good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hello and welcome to the Monday, the 2nd of July edition of the EV News Daily podcast. Whether you are listening or watching on YouTube today with just the audio, it's Martyn Lee here with the news you need to know about electric cars and the move towards sustainable transport. I should know by now, never write a complete podcast ready to go out and record it and upload it to iTunes and tune in and have those podcasts ready for a brand new week and brand new working week on a Monday morning. Just before I do that, I think I'll just check Elon Musk's Twitter. I should never do it, because if I hadn't, I'd be in bed by now. I had a lovely show all ready to go, and then he drops a bombshell. But it's okay, because it's really, really good news, not just about Tesla, but about EV production in general. All right, here's the tweet, then you and I will dig into it a little bit on the podcast today. It was a short and simple tweet. 7,000 cars. 7 days, Team Tesla. So let's get into that then. One of the most famous Tesla emails has been sent in the last few hours. There's been many leaked emails over the years from Elon to all staff, but this leaked email was particularly good. I'll read it out in a moment, but I must say, Elon Musk was really quiet over the weekend just gone, and for a very good reason. You see, there's more to life than just building cars, or even just saving the planet. It's when your brother is getting married and all the family are together. It's a time not to be on Twitter, and I'm pleased to say Elon was very quiet over the weekend. Kimball Musk celebrated his wedding to the environmental activist Christiana Wiley in a lavish wedding in Girona. Kimball, famed for his iconic cowboy hat, was in a permanent fixture on his wedding day. The actual ceremony, I think, was a few weeks ago, months ago. But this was the big wedding day and the big party as well. Anyway, so that's where Elon was. Let's move on to the email sent to all staff. I wonder, maybe from a private jet, maybe from his phone before he boarded the plane back to the west coast of America. And he says this, and I quote, "We did it. What an incredible job by an amazing team. Couldn't be more proud to work with you. It is an honour. The level of dedication and creativity was mind-blowing. We either found a way or by will and inventiveness created entirely new solutions that were thought impossible. Not only did we factory gate 5,000 Model 3s, we also achieved the S and X production target for a combined 7,000 vehicle week." End quote on his email. Wow, so there you have it, confirmation that Tesla did it. If you are a Model 3 reservation holder, and there's over 400,000 of them somewhere in the world, either who reserved or have just got their cars, it's the news you've been wanting to hear, and the news that everybody wanted to hear who just loves electric vehicles, who other car makers have been looking over at Tesla saying, yes, but, well, the Model S is okay, but yes, but they'll never do it. They've done it. And this was a big one. And there's plenty more targets I'm sure they'll get to over the years, but a really good day to celebrate. Two initial thoughts before we get into some of the analysis of this, just things that have come to my mind in the last couple of minutes. This isn't an official company announcement. I know it's an Elon tweet, and that these days is by proxy a company announcement, but in all seriousness, they're a public company. There will be a statement and a report to the market. Secondly, I was thinking about this. With all of the attention on the Model 3, it's actually a really great reminder that the Model S and the Model X are also being ordered and made at a very respectable rate of 2,000 per week. And remember, it was only in April that we found out the official production figures for the Model 3, which was 2,270. That was April per week. And now that was June we've just done, and it's 5,000. A really important number as well, because not just a self-imposed number by Tesla, but also because at 5,000 there is a very clear line of sight to profitability. Again, another thing which many people who not only doubt Tesla, but actively don't want them to succeed, and we know who those people are, I won't go into it again, but they said Tesla is a Ponzi scheme. It'll never be profitable. We've heard those people say that, and we've been saying, look, if you don't believe it, just pipe down and wait and see. they won't be happy at that news today. There'll be a few people having sleepless nights who are losing a lot of money. The people who are betting against Tesla's success, some of them in the many, many millions down as the share price increases. A little thought as well, which came from Ben Sullins from Teslanomics. 5,000 cars a week. If you do an average selling price of $55,000, and that is because people are ordering the performance or up-speccing it and they want anything but the simple black paint. If you multiply those together, and this is crude, I know, that's 250 million in revenue in the last week, just for the Model 3s. And they'll do it next week. And they'll do it every week. And if you say the margins on that are, say, 20%, because they, some of the analysts on the recent stock call, or the shareholder call, got a bit grumpy about margins. And I think it was the last one or the one before. And Elon was defending that. Even if you are conservative and say 20% margin on those Model 3s, that's 50 million. That's not bad to make in a week, and next week, and every week. Well, I do love to read what Dana Hull has to say. She's a long-time Tesla writer and an excellent writer. Of lately, though, on her Twitter, like many people who have been Tesla bashing, maybe just the way things come across. She seemed to delight a little bit too much in any bad news. And I'm a little uncomfortable with people who put themselves out there as being kind of impartial, serious journalists. I'm not. This is a very silly little podcast, and we love everything about EVs. I'm not even pretending to be unbiased. If it's electric and it has batteries in it, I utterly adore it, and I'm guessing you do as well. However, I'm not pretending that I'm some kind of impartial journalist holding companies to account. That's not what this podcast is about. And so it's nice to see something more balanced anyway from Bloomberg and just kind of the normal stuff that I used to like reading from her. And she says this, and I quote, "Tesla factory workers celebrated reaching a milestone of 5,000 Model 3 vehicles a week, according to workers who asked not to be identified, with one saying that cheers were heard at the end of the line." At 5 a.m. local time, a photograph of employees signing a banner welcoming the Model 3 to the 5K Club was soon deleted from Twitter. Remains on Reddit, though, she says. Read the rest of that Bloomberg article. Like I say, really nicely kind of fair, balanced, all that kind of stuff. That exactly what you want to read. When we get the official numbers, I don't know, probably before the 4th of July, I'm guessing, but that's not official either. It could be after then. Or is it official? Now, Elon has tweeted. I mean, I guess so, because the email's gone out to the staff. And that's why some people hate Tesla so much, because they're doing things in a different way, and they're playing by rules that people don't like. And I think it's great. So, will the press talk up this achievement or talk it down? Will they say, well, it's a burst rate and they can't continue? Will they say it's unsustainable? Will they say it's only because of a Boy Scout tent built in the parking lot? Will they say no sign of a $35,000 version yet? All of the old things we've heard a million times before. Well, Jalopnik, sorry for saying their name wrong. I'm not that sorry, to be honest with you. Jalopnik weren't ready to congratulate Tesla with this, and I quote, "The exact methods of building the car itself seemed like a work in progress at times. Production was plagued with issues over automation, batteries, and quality issues on early build cars," end quote. All right, well, let's move on to CNBC. Surely they wouldn't go to extreme lengths to dampen down the party mood by pointing out that it was technically after midnight that the final car passed its inspections. Yeah, they would. I quote, "Tesla nearly produced 5,000 Model 3 in the last week of its second quarter, with the final car rolling off the assembly line on Sunday morning, several hours after the midnight goal." End quote on that article. Oh man, we've got to find at least one positive article, one journalist writing stories that isn't seemingly on the side of big oil industry. I know. Let's go to Reuters, who first broke the news, and I quote, "The company regularly engages in so-called burst builds, temporary periods of fastest possible production, which it uses to estimate how many cars it's capable of building over longer periods of time. Analyst Brian Johnson of Barclays warned investors to be wary of brief burst rates of Model 3 production that were not sustainable," end quote. I looked and looked and looked. I just couldn't find any of the mainstream media just getting behind Tesla on this. Nice balanced article from Bloomberg, but apart from that, there was loads that were really critical of this. Makes you wonder why. Oh, one theory is that Tesla don't advertise with mainstream media, and lots of the clients that do advertise, and, advertisers can put pressure on editorial, whether you like it or not, well, those are big oil and car companies. I'm sure all of those publications we just mentioned are utterly unbiased and wonderful outlets and organisations that wouldn't have their editorial ever influenced by commercial concerns. I'm talking about the others. Right, let's move on to a different story, rather than Tesla now, and Carlos Ghosn. Now, Theo Leggett, he's from the BBC, and he says that Carlos Ghosn, the chairman and chief exec of the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi Alliance, is responsible. He's the man that builds 10 million vehicles a year, and this week, on a UK visit, I asked him how much of a challenge the future presents to traditional car makers. Well, change is certainly coming, faced with strict environmental rules and under intense pressure from politicians. Manufacturers are investing heavily in electric cars. Now, Carlos Ghosn said, and I quote, "Some old-fashioned car companies will not be able to adapt without any doubt. But not all car companies are old-fashioned, and not all will be unable to cope. We're investing a lot. We were the first company to offer mass-market electric cars, and today we are the biggest seller and producer of EVs." He goes on to say, obviously, for those who ignore the change or avoid the change, it's going to be terrible. And he added, for those who do embrace it, obviously it's going to require a lot of effort, a lot of investment, but it could give them more opportunities for growth than we've ever had in the past. A nice positive message there from Carlos about Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi, and a warning for the others that are reluctantly making EVs because they're still rinsing the rest of their diesel investments. And the final story today, by the way, the rest of the podcast, which was meant to be today, will be tomorrow because a lot of the stories were not time sensitive. They were good stuff, but when the Tesla news broke, I thought, you know what, let's not make it massively long, so I've bumped them to tomorrow. Finally, though, we did have to talk about this. Nissan have added an extra disclaimer to the new 40 kilowatt Leaf website. Well, a few weeks back, I saw a BBC reporter tweeting that he was looking for people who have had rapid charge issues with their new Leaf for a story he was writing. And what do you know? It was recently published. It wasn't what you'd call a hatchet job, but whenever a reporter is on Twitter asking for people to come forward who have had problems, you know it's not going to be a glowing report. However, they weren't too critical of Nissan, and also there was somebody in the article who was really annoyed. He'd come forward, he'd put himself forward to talk about, he's bought a new 40 kilowatt Leaf, furious that the range isn't what the NEDC range said. Look, maybe not his fault. Maybe he doesn't know about cars. Maybe he was missold. Maybe the dealer didn't tell him. Maybe he did his own research and got it wrong. Maybe he didn't do his own research. You don't know, but it's frustrating when all of the press that I've seen coming from Nissan and Nissan PR say, this is NEDC range, but this is the real world range. I saw so much around the launch of the Nissan Leaf that was talking about real world range. Even like Renault, when with the Zoe, they go, look, this is the NEDC, which is old-fashioned and going in the next few weeks, by the way. But this is the summer range, this is the winter range. And I saw Nissan doing that a lot with the Leaf. So it's frustrating when you get a big, like organisation like the BBC reporting articles from people saying, I wish I'd never bought it because it doesn't do the range I was told. Well, it was never going to. Anyway, following the criticism of multiple rapid charges slowing down, Brian Weatherall over the weekend, last night actually, sent me a link to Nissan's website disclaimer, and it's a lot longer than the last time I saw it. Let me read it to you. It says this, and I quote, "Rapid charging figures quoted are for the 40 kilowatt hour battery, time dependent on charging conditions, including charger type and condition, battery temperature, as well as ambient temperature at point of use." And I'll just cut in here to say that is the disclaimer I'm pretty sure I've seen on Nissan's website since they launched the 40 kilowatt hour Leaf. Let me continue. Indicated rapid charging time requires use of a CHAdeMO rapid charger. Nissan electric vehicles have charging safeguards to protect the battery during repeated fast charging sessions in a short period of time. The time taken for additional rapid charging, 3+ successive procedures can take longer if the battery temperature activates the battery safeguarding technology. And that's where the new disclaimer ends. So that is a lot longer than the original version, and it's something that appeared over the weekend on the UK Nissan website, at least as a disclaimer. And that's fascinating, specifically saying 3+ successive procedures on the Rapids. It took them a while to publicly address that. They've been talking to individual buyers for a long time, by the way. Customer service, from what I understand, has been very good in some places. A few people have had frustrations, and I get that as well. I've seen a few people are often very quick to complain on social media and not so quick to praise, but there have been some issues, as from what I gather. A final bit of feedback, by the way. This is from Mike, who is a listener to the podcast. Mike Winter says this: the fact they're claiming it's 3+ Rapids before protection is disingenuous. There have been numerous reports now of speed restrictions occurring much earlier. They don't seem to be playing this well at all. It's very disappointing. That's his reply to it. And by the way, someone who has been on the podcast before, reporting in live from Germany, Phil Roberts, who installs PV and storage and has a new Leaf, by the way. So he's, clearly I say that as a background because he knows what he's talking about in this space. I saw him recently on Twitter in a very hot weather here in the UK, I must admit, but I think on his second Rapid was getting some very low speeds. Let me know what you think of all of today's news in the comments section, either of the podcast, because this is, by the way, a podcast. It's meant to be on iTunes and TuneIn, but the YouTube channel seems to be doing okay at the moment. So thank you for all your YouTube comments, even though there's no pictures to go along with this. It is a podcast. You can leave it on the website and any of those places where you can leave comments. On Facebook and Twitter, you can search EV News Daily if you want to connect on there and leave a little comment for tomorrow's section. If you want to catch up with all previous 167 episodes of the podcast, including an interview on Saturday 2 days ago with a brand new community to buy, sell and learn about used electric cars. It's called myev.com and it's brought to you by Inside EVs. You can download that episode. It's waiting for you whenever you want to listen to that one. And if you want to check them out, they're on Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, TuneIn, Stitcher and the blog at evnewsdaily.com. Have a wonderful day and I'll catch you tomorrow.